Hello, this is Travis for Sliver Surfer 1. Okay, so a couple of years ago, I was in Niagara Falls taking my kids to a music festival to perform, and they were back at the motel, and I went into town to get some groceries, and I saw a Value Village, and I thought, well, I'll drop into that Value Village because I always like to get vintage equipment, photo equipment and whatnot. So yeah, I went to the showcase because that's usually where they keep the good camera equipment, and there was nothing there. Then I went to the electronics department and couldn't find anything there. And so then I went to the assorted electronics cables and doohickeys that were hanging on the walls in little baggies, little flimsy baggies, usually cheap stuff. And I saw this black cylinder on the wall. There was a man standing in front of me looking at USB cables and whatnot, and I saw this thing over his shoulder, and it looked like a lens, and it looked like a very I had never seen one of these before. It was very large and stout, so it wasn't a telephoto. So I reached over and I grabbed this baggie, and in it was this. Look at all that glass. What is this? It's a 75 millimeter Astro Berlin Takenar. Okay, 75 millimeter, and look at that. It's a 1-to-1, 75 millimeter 1-to-1. Okay, so I saw the price on it. I'm like, $9.99. Should I buy this? And yeah, obviously I bought it because here I have it right now. It's in pretty good shape. It's not, pristine, but for $9.99 you can't complain. Okay, but it has no iris and it has no focus. Okay, so for about a year I had it on my shelf sitting there waiting for an idea of what to do. So what I did was I ordered myself, went on eBay and ordered looked at helicoids. So I measured the outside diameter of this part, and I measured it, and it was 55 millimeters, the outside of that. I think 55 or 50, either 52 or 55 millimeters. And I ordered this 55 to M42 mount helicoid. It was fairly expensive for a helicoid just because 55 millimeter threads are pretty hard to find. My other option was to go with a Canon EOS to 42 mount, which I would have had to do some grinding and whatnot. So, but I figured the nice threads in there, they would have fit better and been a better fit and finish on this lens here. So yeah, but I want, it had from holding this up to my my Sony A7, I could see that the distance had to be about that wide, right, from here to here. Had to be about that wide for me to get infinity focus. So yeah, it worked out pretty good. But to get it to fit on my Sony, what I had to do is I got an M42 to Sony mount. Here, this little bit here. Okay, from here over to here is an M42 to Sony mount. And what I did is I ground out some holes in it, in the thread part, and I put some epoxy on it, and I tightened it on there, and then put some more epoxy on the inside of here with some tape to seal it from getting on the stuff. So that's on there very well. So now we have a helicoid that'll work on here. I put a little bit of electrical tape around here just to give it a nice grip so it would screw on and hold pretty good once it was screwed on. Okay, so there we go, we have that, and it won't move anywhere. Okay, so have a look at it, put it on like that, and now we have the world's fastest 75mm full frame lens. Okay, and I'm saying that because there is nothing faster than this right now. Meyer Optic Gorlitz, I believe it's called, is coming up with one in December next year. That's 0.95, but I beat you to it. Okay. We'll talk a little bit about this lens. Okay. I will show some samples of it a little bit later. This lens is extremely heavy. It's got no iris. Like, I do have, I don't really see sense of putting an iris in it. I saw one eBayer that made one of these. They machined, it was beautiful. They machined a housing for it, and they put an iris in it, and they were charging 22,000 Canadian, I think 18,000 American at the time, that or US dollars, sorry, when I saw it. But generally these things are about $1,000 to $3,000 depending on the condition. I got mine for $10. So yeah, now it's got focus. Okay, but it feels kind of funny the way this focuses. You can, if you want, and I've done this before, but there's really no need to put an iris in it, but you can put an iris kind of in there, like a fixed iris. The body screws apart right here, and I've put irises in there just to see, like little plastic irises that I've made that fit in there, just to see what it looks like. And honestly, if you've got a 75 1:1 or f1, 75 f1, why would you need to put an iris in it? Okay, because this lens is pretty soft, very low contrast, even with the aperture iris in it. So yeah, it's prone to flare. It's got really odd bokeh, especially at night. The bokeh's not too bad during the day, but when you have street lights, it's pretty odd. And again, you'll see what I mean when I post it. If I want, around that focal length, and I want to have step ups from that, I've got a Rokinon 85 1.4. I can use that, but this is more for like a cinematic feel, and this is, from what I've seen on it, it's there's barely anything on it. It's extremely rare. It was a cinematography lens. I'm not clear on the dates, but I imagine it's fairly old lens because there's no coatings on it. So it's probably from the 60s or 70s or maybe even earlier 50s. But because this lens has such, it sucks light in because of all that glass, since it does that, I decided that I have to fix it. It's so low contrast when you don't have a hood on this thing, and it's very awkward. So what I did was, I have a 3D printer, okay, and this is years after I did this. I've made a post on this on a couple websites years ago when I made this. But what I did to kind of fix some of the problems I had is I went into Tinkercad and I made some parts for this to make it function better, and I'll show you what I did. Okay, so the first thing I did was this. I made a collar that fits around the lens, and it's got a notch on it in here that grips onto the helicoid focus ring. So I'll put that on right now. Okay, so I'm gonna take, because I made this just to barely fit on there, I'm gonna put a little piece of tape to help with firming up the snugness of my focus ring. Alright, so we fit this on over it. Okay, so see that? Looks like a more professional lens now. And I'll put this on my camera and you can see. Alright, so now it looks more like a lens. Alright. But what I had to do, because this thing is so difficult in light, is I had to put a hood on it. So I took a cue from the Sony E-mount 35mm macro lens. The hood on that is a kind of like a cap that has a square on the end, right? Because if I did a tulip style one, it was very, very long, and if I did a square one, it would have been really big. So yeah, you can see that there. It's kind of got threads on it, so we'll put this on the camera. There. Now we have a pretty pro looking set. Now I've seen, I think it looks actually pretty good. It's not going to sell for $20,000, but I don't think I'm going to sell this thing. It's kind of neat to have it around. It shoots in pretty low light. It's got super thin depth of field. Yeah, so it's one of my favorite little lenses, but it's a terrible lens. I gotta stress that point. It's not good in any sense of the word, but you know, most of you that have vintage lenses, you don't have them because they're perfect. You have them because they show emotion, like they convey moods a lot better than the perfect lens. I know there's lots of filters in this Instagram era. It's just, it kind of warms the cockles of your heart using something like this, like a rare lens that almost nobody has, and you know, and also getting it at under $10 really helps out. So my total cost for building this thing was $10 for the lens, $55 for the helicoid because it's a rare helicoid, and $1.99 for the little Sony to M42 short mount. Okay, so here's my samples. You know, I just went out and shot with this thing. They're not extremely artistic or whatever, but it shows kind of what you can expect from this lens. So yeah, there's the samples. Please subscribe right here. Okay, it's my camera. And then watch these videos too. Okay? Thank you.